Do you think only Africa holds the black soul of the world? Or if you ever wondered about black populations in other countries, have you ever asked yourself, how did they even get there? Well, get ready because history isn't what you were told in school. You will be shocked to discover that there are countries outside Africa today where black communities are so large that they outnumber the populations of many African nations themselves. And it's not by accident. The story stretches back centuries to an era of slavery, colonization, struggle, resilience, and ultimate survival. Today, in 2025, that history still echoes loudly. So, which countries outside Africa have the largest black populations now, and which country tops the list? In this video, let's find out. Number 10. United Kingdom. The black experience in the United Kingdom stretches back far longer than most realize, revealing a deep history often overlooked. As of 2025, approximately 2.4 million people, making up around 2.4% of the UK's total population, identify as Black Britons. While much of this community traces its lineage to the Windrush generation, who were Caribbean immigrants who came to Britain in the aftermath of World War II to help rebuild the nation, the black presence actually dates as far back as the Tudor period. Records show that Africans living in London and port cities as early as the 16th century were involved in everything from court life to maritime trade. The modern Black British community, however, took fuller shape after 1948, when the Empire Windrush docked in Tilbury and waves of Caribbean migrants settled in cities like London, Birmingham, Manchester, and Liverpool. Alongside them, Africans from Nigeria, Ghana, Somalia, and Kenya would later add their own chapters to the unfolding story. These communities, initially met with racism, hostility, and economic exclusion, nevertheless built resilient neighborhoods that flourished culturally, giving rise to movements like the Notting Hill Carnival, British reggae, grime music, and the Black British literary boom. Today, Black Britons are deeply woven into the UK's cultural, political, and social fabric, producing towering figures in music like Stormzy, Little Simz, politics like David Lammy, Diane Abbott, literature like Bernardine Evaristo, and sports like Marcus Rashford, Dinah Asher-Smith. Yet systemic racism, police brutality, and economic inequality remain persistent struggles. Still, the Black British community continues to stand as an example of determination, creativity, and contribution, proving that Britain's future is inseparably linked to the voices and visions of its black citizens. Number 9. Mexico. Mexico's story of African ancestry is often hidden beneath layers of history, but it is far deeper and richer than commonly known. As of 2025, about 2.5 million people in Mexico, approximately 2% of the national population, identify as Afro-Mexican, though the real number is likely much higher due to centuries of systemic invisibility. Their story begins in the early colonial period when Spanish settlers, desperate for labor after indigenous populations were decimated by disease and conquest, turned to African slave markets. African men, women, and children were shipped across the Atlantic and forced into labor in plantations, ranches, mining camps, and port cities. Over centuries, Afro-Mexicans endured erasure from the national narrative, pushed into remote communities along the Pacific coast, particularly in Costa Chica and the Gulf Coast state of Veracruz. These areas today are a living example of African influence, where vibrant drum-based music, dances like the Danza de los Diablos, and culinary traditions infused with African flavors still thrive. Only in the past decade has Mexico begun to officially recognize Afro-Mexicans as a distinct ethnic group, finally including them in the census and in public discussions about race and rights. Yet despite progress, Afro-Mexicans continue to face challenges of economic marginalization, lack of political representation, and racial prejudice. But what has endured is their cultural power. Festivals, music, language, and resilience passed down through generations. Their contribution to Mexico's soul, from the son jarocho musical styles to the rebellious spirit seen in regions like Guerrero, proves that the African legacy is not an add-on to Mexican identity. It is an unshakable part of it. Number 8. Jamaica. It's no surprise to find Jamaica solidly among the countries with the largest Black populations outside Africa. But it's not just the numbers that make it stand out. It's the unstoppable cultural force that emerged from it. As of 2025, roughly 90% of Jamaica's 2.8 million citizens identify as of African descent. These are the proud descendants of West Africans, primarily taken from the Akan, Igbo, Yoruba, and Congo peoples, who were forcibly brought to the island by the British during the horrors of the transatlantic slave trade. Forced into brutal labor on sugar plantations under unbearable conditions, they nevertheless preserved much of their heritage, like their songs, their religious practices, and their language rhythms, weaving them into the emerging Jamaican identity. When slavery finally ended in 1838, Jamaica's Black majority wasted no time in reshaping the island's culture and society on their terms. Today, that heritage is impossible to miss. From the revolutionary spirit of Marcus Garvey and the international language of resistance taught through reggae music, to the electric global dominance of Jamaican sprinters like Usain Bolt and Shelley Ann Fraser-Price. Jamaican Black identity is not just proud, it's fierce, world-shaping, and unbreakable. Urban centers like Kingston, Spanish Town, and Montego Bay serve as vibrant epicenters of this resilience, where art, activism, and Afro-Caribbean spirit converge to inspire not just Jamaicans but people across the diaspora. Despite economic challenges and social pressures, the strength of Jamaica's Black roots remains a beacon for Black communities worldwide seeking pride, dignity, and liberation. Number 7. Venezuela. Often overlooked in broader discussions, Venezuela quietly harbors one of Latin America's richest Afro-descendant cultures. As of 2025, around 4% of Venezuela's 28 million people, about 1.2 million, proudly claim Afro-Venezuelan heritage. Their story, like so many others, began in chains. During Spanish colonial rule, enslaved Africans were brought to Venezuela to toil on cacao plantations, particularly along the humid, fertile coasts. Over time, these communities, especially in places like Barlovento, Zulia, and Cumana, wove African traditions into the nation's cultural DNA. Today, Afro-Venezuelan identity thrives through music and spirituality. The drums of Barlovento, pounding, complex, and alive, are not mere entertainment. They are an ancestral heartbeat passed down through centuries. Religious festivals like San Juan Bautista, where communities dance and drum in ecstatic homage, show how Africa still speaks through Venezuelan soil. Yet, like many Afro-descendant communities across Latin America, Afro-Venezuelans face deep challenges like poverty, political marginalization, and underrepresentation. The country's economic collapse in recent years has only worsened these inequalities, hitting marginalized communities hardest. Still, resistance burns brightly. Grassroots movements led by Afro-Venezuelans fight daily for land rights, political inclusion, and cultural preservation, refusing to let history erase their place in Venezuela's past or its future. Number 6. France. When people think of Black populations, France might not immediately come to mind, but it should. As of 2025, France's Black population is estimated to be between 3 to 5 million, making it one of the largest outside of Africa. Their roots trace back to the empire and colonization. Throughout the 19th and early 20th centuries, France built a vast colonial empire across West Africa, the Caribbean, and beyond. After World War II, waves of immigrants from former colonies like Senegal, Mali, Guadeloupe, and Martinique arrived, first to help rebuild a war-shattered nation, and later seeking opportunities in the booming decades that followed. Black French communities have profoundly shaped modern France, from the electrifying artistry of musicians like Aya Nakamura to the political breakthroughs of leaders like Christian Taubira to the glory of the 2018 World Cup team, where more than half the players were of African descent. Black excellence pulses through French society. Yet France's Black citizens have also faced a paradox, the promise of liberté, égalité, fraternité clashing with the harsh realities of systemic racism, police violence, and economic exclusion. Protests like the global George Floyd demonstrations in 2020 found powerful echoes in Paris, Marseille, and Lyon, cities where Afro-French neighborhoods like Chateau Rouge and Noailles vibrate with life but simmer with frustration. Despite these struggles, the African and Afro-Caribbean spirit in France is undeniable. From spicy West African eateries in Parisian suburbs to colorful carnival parades in Marseille, France today hums with the rhythm of its Black citizens, a vital part of its soul, fighting every day for visibility, equality, and dignity. Before we continue further, tell us, are you enjoying the video? If yes, please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos about Little Heard and untold news stories. Let's continue now. Number 5. Colombia. Colombia, a country of dazzling diversity, is home to one of the largest Black populations outside Africa, even though many outsiders don't realize it. As of 2025, over 11 million Afro-Colombians live within its borders, making up nearly 22% of the national population. Their arrival was brutal. Spanish traders trafficked Africans into Colombia as forced labor for gold mines, sugar plantations, and ranches, particularly along the Pacific and Caribbean coasts. In time, many enslaved Africans escaped into remote rainforests and coastal towns, founding free communities known as palenques, places where African languages, dances, and religious practices flourished beyond colonial control. Today, regions like Choco, Buenaventura, and the Caribbean coast remain strongholds of Afro-Colombian culture. In their music, vibrant cumbia, haunting curulao rhythms, the African heartbeat survives. In spiritual traditions blending Catholicism with African cosmology, the soul of resistance remains alive. But life for Afro-Colombians is still marred by deep inequalities. Economic marginalization, underinvestment, and racial discrimination persist, especially in rural and coastal areas where poverty is entrenched. Yet despite these challenges, Afro-Colombians continue to rise through activism, art, sports, and political movements that fight for dignity and recognition. Number 4. Dominican Republic. Across the same island, separated by an invisible border, the Dominican Republic tells a parallel yet distinct story. Often confused with Haiti, the Dominican Republic carries its own deep African roots. Roots sometimes celebrated, sometimes complicated by issues of racial identity. As of 2025, around 8 million Dominicans are of Afro-descended ancestry, forming about 80% of the population when including mixed heritage. The African imprint is everywhere, in the pulsing rhythms of merengue and bachata, born from drums that once guided enslaved rebels, in the rich stews and plantain dishes that trace their flavors back to West African kitchens, in the Spanish language itself, shaped subtly by African tongues resisting complete erasure. The Black Dominican story is layered. During the colonial period, enslaved Africans were imported under Spanish rule to work on sugar plantations. Later waves of freed Black communities, known as cimarrones, built hidden villages and resisted oppression. And through centuries of migration, mixing, and national rebirths, African blood became inseparable from Dominican identity. Yet the country still grapples with racial tension and colorism, often downplaying African ancestry in favor of Spanish colonial myths. Still, reality shines through. In the music, the faces, the food, and the soul of the nation, the African heritage of the Dominican Republic is undeniable and unstoppable. Number 3. Haiti. Haiti stands not only as a country, but as a living monument to resistance. As of 2025, over 95% of Haiti's 11 million citizens are of full African descent, a staggering percentage unmatched outside the African continent. But those numbers were written in blood. During the 17th and 18th centuries, French colonists transformed the fertile island of Hispaniola into the richest colony in the world, powered by the brutal exploitation of enslaved Africans. Sugar, coffee, and indigo. These crops built French fortunes on the backs of unimaginable suffering. Haiti isn't just a country with a large Black population, it is a global symbol of what Black freedom cost and what it still demands. Number 2. United States. The United States stands as another colossal chapter in the global Black story. As of 2025, about 13.6% of Americans, more than 40 million people, are Black. Their journey, however, was carved into the American soil with chains and blood. The roots stretch back to the horrors of the transatlantic slave trade when millions of Africans were shackled and sold into brutal plantation economies across the American South. Their forced labor built not just fields of cotton, tobacco, and sugar, but the very foundations of the U.S. economy itself. After emancipation in 1865, freed Black communities faced new chains like Jim Crow laws, racial terror, and economic oppression. But they did not crumble. In waves of resilience, they migrated internally. The Great Migration in the early 20th century saw millions move from the racially violent South to industrial cities like Chicago, Detroit, and New York, reshaping the cultural and political landscape of America. Today, while Black Americans are found in every corner of the U.S., major concentrations remain in Texas, Georgia, Florida, Louisiana, and New York, states where deep historical ties meet modern resurgence. Black Americans have not just endured, they have redefined the country. From the thunderous victories of the civil rights movement led by icons like Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, and Rosa Parks, to cultural revolutions in music, art, sports, and literature, Black Americans have shaped the very soul of modern America. Their influence is visible in hip-hop blasting from speakers worldwide, in the enduring fight for justice through movements like Black Lives Matter, and in political milestones like the election of Barack Obama and the leadership of Kamala Harris. Yet, as much as their spirit has risen, systemic inequalities remain. Economic disparity, education gaps, and racial discrimination continue to be battlegrounds in the 21st century. Still, the Black American community endures, not just surviving, but leading, innovating, and transforming the nation daily. Number 1. Brazil. Brazil remains the undisputed giant when it comes to Black populations outside Africa. As of 2025, over 120 million Brazilians proudly identify as Black or of African descent, representing more than 54% of the country's total population. But these numbers aren't just statistics. They are echoes of centuries of survival, struggle, and rebirth. Brought forcibly during the brutal Atlantic slave trade, millions of Africans were transported to Brazilian shores, the largest destination for enslaved Africans in the New World. They were forced into grueling labor on sugarcane plantations and gold and diamond mines and as urban servants, creating the foundations of Brazil's early wealth. Even after slavery was officially abolished in 1888, the last country in the Western Hemisphere to do so, the descendants of these enslaved peoples remained rooted, building new lives under the long shadow of inequality. Yet despite the hardships, their spirit endured and blossomed. Today, the African influence on Brazil is not subtle. It is the living heart of Brazilian identity. From the intoxicating samba rhythms of Bahia to the sacred religious traditions of Candomblé, blending African spiritualism with Catholicism, to the very cuisine, dance, and street festivals like Carnival, every corner of Brazilian life beats with African vitality. However, this vibrant heritage isn't spread evenly. The northeastern states, especially Bahia, Maranhão, and Pernambuco, hold the highest concentrations of Afro-Brazilians, regions where African traditions remain strongest and most celebrated. In contrast, Brazil's southern regions, heavily settled by European immigrants, have lower Black populations and, historically, different social dynamics. Yet from Salvador's colorful streets to Rio's favelas and São Paulo's bustling neighborhoods, the Black Brazilian spirit is unmistakable and unbreakable. Brazil doesn't just have the highest Black population outside Africa. It carries a second African soul on the other side of the Atlantic. Did you already know which country will top the list of countries with the highest Black population outside Africa? Isn't it fascinating that almost every country has a Black population? In the comments section below, share your thoughts on the fact that despite living in other countries for centuries, Black people still feel a connection to Africa, and that's heartwarming. Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We bring videos on topics that might sound controversial, mysterious, and shocking, but are profound and authentic. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.